Give you the fight odds. We have Darko Stasic rather, plus 105. Devin Clark a minus 125. Danilo Bellardo minus 105 over Joel Alvarez, the minus one, or actually Joel Alvarez minus 115 over Bellardo, the minus 105, a virtual pick'em. We have Bia Malecki minus 120 over Eduarda Santana, the plus 100. We have Rostam Akhman against Sergey Kazanko. Kazanko is a minus 165. Akhman is a plus 145. You have Daniel Tamer, a plus 125. Sung Bin Yo, minus 145. Christos Giagos, a plus 155. And Damir Hadzovic, a minus 175. Now, those are some of the lesser names on this show. Is there anything there that stands out to you? Because most of these lines are pretty damn close, Joe.
Well, I like the Santos Ray fight, of course, for more reasons than one. Camacho and Hein, but yeah, it's one of those cards that's heavy with local talent, or at least European talent, before we get into the big names, right?
Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about some of these bigger ones. Stevie Ray, a plus 175. Leonardo Santos, a minus 210. Now, Leonardo Santos was one of those guys that looked like he could be poised for a really good run, but I mean, time has not been kind to him in that regard. He's never lost in the UFC. He's unbeaten in his 6 fights, but it's like he even beat Kevin Lee. But since he's not fought in 2.5 years, Joe.
Yeah.
You can't be 39 years old and not fight in like 2.5 years. He's favored to win this fight, but it's one of those situations where you wonder when it's going to go. And the only people that have beaten him since he got on Tough Brazil is Santiago Ponzinibbio. Do you think that he can continue this? And what do you think that these 2.5 years off have done to him?
You know what? First of all, I apologize for bringing up that fight, because when you were going through the list, I brought the site up and I thought you said it, so I shouldn't have brought it up. But yeah,
okay.
Before that, though, like, I mean, to answer your question, there's one site, Sports Interactive, minus 260.
Yeah,
Santos. That's a plus 190 on Stevie Ray. If that isn't a, Sean Ross Sapp, I got 5 on it, I don't know what is, because Stevie Ray, although he hasn't been fantastic, he's been competing. Santos hasn't. I mean, I know he's got the name. I know that if this fight goes down to the ground, it could be over pretty quickly, because that jiu-jitsu skill set never seems to go away. Even no matter how old you are, speed may go away. But when you're in some world champion jiu-jitsu's guard, it could get ugly. But this is definitely a fight that someone should put 5 on it, man.
Also, I want to point out what Joseph Boza mentioned. The Santana Malecki fight is particularly interesting because that's a women's 145-pound fight.
Yes.
And it's a person who has one pro fight against a person with 3 pro fights. Women athletes, if you play volleyball, if you play basketball, if you are looking for an outlet to become a professional athlete and you are a taller, bigger girl, and you can get down to 145 in a healthy manner, train MMA. You might be a UFC fighter in a year, and that is not a stretch. If you win 2 or 3 fights professionally at lightweight, bantamweight, featherweight, you could get a 145-pound fight in the UFC. I have begged some people some college female athletes in my area, move into MMA. You can make that happen quickly, especially if you're a little bit bigger. Also on this show, Joe, Lena Landsberg, speaking of, plus 240, Tanya Evinger minus 280, both a couple of former Cyborg victims. A lot more stock in Tanya Evinger than there is Lena Landsberg at this point.
Yeah, she's not heavily favored, but significantly favored in this fight here. And I agree. I think Evinger's going to win this fight. I mean, you're never going to be able to question her heart. Landsberg can go the distance, but Evinger's going to put that pressure on her. I think she'll steal a minimum of 2 rounds to 1.
Second biggest line on this show is that fight.
Yeah. There's
also Alexander Rakic, a minus 230 against Jimmy Manuwa, a plus 190. That's an interesting one, Joe. I mean, Rakic is obviously doing very, very well. And you look at when you look at Jimmy Manuwa, he's got that knockout power, but unfortunately for him, he has not been making it happen of late. He's 39 years old, and again, you got to wonder when that goes away. We've not seen a knockout from Jimmy. We've not seen a win out of Jimmy Manuwa in 2 years. Since 2017, he's only won one fight. He did have a great fight of the night against Blachowicz, but I'm of the belief that Jimmy Manuwa is on the decline. Obviously, he's lost to Blachowicz, Santos, and Ozdemir. He had lost to Johnson and Gustafsson before that. But if you're beating Jimmy Manuwa, at least prior, you're on your way to something, Joe. Yeah. And it seems like at least the bettors seem to think that that's Alexander Rakic.
Well, he's on a 10-fight win streak, 11-1, and he's fighting a name. So it's perfect for him to take on a guy that has a name that and most people don't know his own name. So it can get pretty interesting because if you do the math here for a second, Jimmy Manuwa is ranked at number 11, right? Like you get a win over Jimmy Manuwa, that just means he's got a name up there. You could be in that top 15 Sunday morning, right? Or at least when the rankings come out again. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, the odds are crazy here, if you ask me. But maybe they're right, Sean. Maybe they're absolutely right.
Yeah, this will be definitely in my I got 5 on it picks. Rakic just stepped in. He had that KO over Devin Clark. And my God, the guy fights everywhere. His last 4 fights, he's went Austria, Netherlands, Germany, Canada, and now Sweden. The guy is all over the map the last couple of years. But Jimmy Manuwa can put somebody out with one shot, so I don't know if I'm comfortable with those odds.
Well, the first three to 4 minutes are going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Right? And then after that, it's, oh boy, look out.
Now, I really think the top 4 fights on this show are just awesome. Like, I love watching Makwan Amirkhani fight, and the guy is just hilarious. He's a plus 100. Chris Fishgold, a minus 120. I don't hate where this line is necessarily. It seems fair, but is there anything you're necessarily looking for out of Fishgold that gives him the edge for at least from the betting standpoint?
Not necessarily. Oh, I mean, we know Amirkhani, that loss to Arnold Allen was a split decision loss, and of course the Jason Knight fight. Jason Knight's not an easy guy to beat. That was a split decision. Yeah. You can't really fault him on that. But his start off in the UFC was fantastic with the Andy Ogle. I don't remember that jet flying knee and the punches after that.
Amazing.
So, yeah. So
and the meme afterwards, do you remember that when somebody goes, "Would you be interested in the rematch?" And he goes, "Against who?" It was amazing.
So he's got some character to him, right? So he's got his 5 fights in the UFC now, 4 or 5 fights in the UFC. So I think he's going to continue his run. He's going to make a name for himself again. Take nothing away from Chris. I mean, nothing away from Chris, but it is what it is right now.
Yeah, and Chris Fishgold is very, very good. He dropped the fight to Calvin Kattar and won his next fight against Daniel Tamer. But this is one I may actually go the direction of Amirkhani in, just because we've seen that explosive ability to knock somebody out very quickly. Fishgold has a very good submission game. I mean, my God, it was almost a habit in Cage Warriors. He would just drag people down and choke them out. I think he had 4 of 5 fights in a row that ended that way. And I think he had like 6 or 7 choke submission wins in Cage Warriors. So this one could be a very fun fight. As could be Ilir Latifi versus Volkan Ozdemir. I think it could be very good or very terrible because of the skill set of Ilir Latifi. You know Latifi, he's going to throw a big hook, a big overhand. He's going to try to get into the clinch and take Ozdemir down. Ozdemir is going to try to put his fist on the side of Latifi's face and make him unconscious. Ozdemir minus 120, Latifi a plus 100. I think that's a fair line considering the skill sets involved. But who do you think's winning this?
Well, look at all the pressure's on, right? The pressure's all on Volkan Ozdemir. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, albeit against some pretty good names. It seems Latifi just goes these little streaks, 2 wins, 1 loss, 3 wins, 1 loss, and he's off that 1 loss now. I mean, the last time he's won or he's lost 2 fights in a row is never, right? So interesting to note with that. So this co-main event's going to be fun. Ozdemir, I'm sorry, cannot afford to lose. Nobody can really afford to lose 4 fights in a row. The pressure's on him. This is in Latifi's backyard. He lives in Sweden. Ozdemir technically lives in California, or excuse me, in Florida. Although he's from Europe, it can get real interesting here. And Ozdemir's got to put on a good enough performance that he doesn't lose, but a good enough performance that he does win and keeps his stock value up. Right, so I think it's going to be a really good fight because Latifi's no joke. He's just so compact. He's so powerful. But Ozdemir, with his pressure, might be able to catch Latifi making a big mistake and then capitalize with the TKO. Right?
Bellator would love Ozdemir. They would just love Ozdemir. Somebody to kind of mix up that light heavyweight division who loves to throw bombs. And if I'm Bellator, I would book Volkan Ozdemir versus Rampage Jackson at about 225, 230 pounds in a heartbeat. I would love to book that fight if I were them. Main event, the biggest line discrepancy on the show, Alexander Gustafsson, the former title challenger, a minus 325. Anthony Smith, a plus 265. Gustafsson cannot stay in the cage. He got injured when he was supposed to fight Ozdemir. He got injured when he was supposed to fight Little Nog. He got injured when he fought Teixeira. He got injured the second time he was supposed to fight Jones. They couldn't make the first Nogueira fight happen. Out of the Musashi fight, there's still time for this fight to not happen. And it's one of those fights, Joe, that I'm not convinced will happen until it happens. Anthony Smith will show up to fight. We know that for sure. I think that line is insane. Considering the fact that Anthony Smith has fought, just quite frankly, some of the greatest fighters in the UFC present day. He fought both of the members of the next light heavyweight title fight. He beat the brakes off of, or he tapped out Volkan. He beat the brakes off of Shogun and Rashad. No big deal there. But do I think Anthony Smith will win? Not necessarily. Will he be an I got 5 on it pick? He will. I want to know what you think.
I got 5 pesos on Anthony Smith, brother. I got 5 on Anthony Smith in this one here. Take nothing away from Alexander Gustafsson, who's going to have that reach advantage and, fighting at home and maybe able to kickstart his career again, right? It's a very highly skilled fight. Very highly skilled. People should not be sleeping on this fight here. But Anthony Smith is a murderer, and he was just freaking out, dying to get back onto the horse after that John Jones fight. Just dying to just say, the guy nullified me, wasn't able to do much. I need to get back in there and prove what I'm worth. And what better way to do it than a guy like Alexander Gustafsson, who's been the consummate number 1 or number 2 ranked fighter in this division. So a lot at stake here for both of these fighters. Alexander defending his ranking, Alexander defending home turf. Anthony Smith wanting to continue his career that started way back when. He's been competing for a long time, and just for his own sake, mentally speaking and physically, to be able to perform at a level that he believes he can perform at. So this is a solid main event for sure.
I like it. I'm excited for the show. I'm like, it's funny because my relaxation is coming back to work. That's like when I travel. Andrew's the same way. I'm like, man, I got to write. I got to write. I got to write. I got to edit. I got to do all this stuff. And I look at Saturday afternoon MMA, nighttime wrestling, really excited for it. I can kind of